So we're going to take a look at simplifying basic trig identities. The very first page is going to be our reference sheet. We're going to use this throughout this unit. Before we start, there's some basic knowledge that we need to know. How to square something. So it means multiply it by itself twice. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 3 is 9. Go ahead and combine like terms. You're going to get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Go ahead and do that second example yourself. And the rule for squaring that you need to know, it's basically that whenever you have something squared, it's the two things at the end squared and then the middle, so 2ax. And this is actually something I'm going to write in just a few minutes. It should be x squared plus 2ax plus a squared. So the very first thing squared, the last thing squared, and then the two middle terms multiplied together. All right, so again, go ahead and multiply that one. In terms of factoring, the rule for factoring, and this only works for the difference of squares, is you take the square root of both, put them in parentheses with a plus and a minus. Take the square root of both, put them in parentheses with a plus and a minus. Okay, so I'm going to show you what that is. So you take the square root of the first, square root of the second, square root of 16 is 4, square root of x squared is x, square root of 25 is 5. In parentheses with a plus and then a minus. So that's how you do it. And it only is for difference of squares. That means you can take the square root of the first and the second, and there's a minus sign in between. Okay, how do you add and subtract fractions? Well, you cannot add and subtract until the denominator is the same. So how do I make them the same? Well, whatever is missing from the denominator, you multiply that by it. So this is missing a 7, I multiply top and bottom. This one's missing a 2, you multiply top and bottom. So that's going to give me 21 minus 10 over 14. Over 14. So the denominators are the same. Now I can add and subtract. And this is only for adding and subtract. So I go ahead and subtract because that's the question. Get 11 over 14. And the last step is simplify, but I don't need to simplify in this question. Now that we got some basic math out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So again, you're going to be referencing this and this. So your reciprocal and your quotient identities. You should know this by heart, but if you need to flip back, go ahead and flip back. So looking at tan, what is tan? Tan is sine over cosine. So you're going to replace tan with sine x over cosine x. What's cosecant? Well, you should know that it's 1 over sine. And again, if you don't know that, you just keep flipping back and forth to the formula sheet. All right, what can I see? I can see that I can cross out the top sign with the bottom sign because I'm multiplying the fraction, leaving 1 over cosine x. Well, the formula sheet says that should be secant. 1 over cosine is secant. So we can replace that with secant. And that's all we're going to really be doing this unit. Is just replace it with different things to simplify the expression. All right, let's take a look at another example. I'll go ahead and do example 2. So I have secant. All right, again, what is secant? Secant is 1 over cosine. This is a listening check. Put a box around example 2. Box example 2. Times sine. So we just go, that's just sine. All over tan. And what's tan? Sine over. All right, what can we simplify? I can put an invisible 1 over the sign, right? Anything divided by 1 is the same thing. All right, I can cross out the 1's on the top, right? Leaving sine over cosine divided by sine over cosine. So what's the same thing divided by the same thing? 1. This is a listening check. Coloring example 3. Coloring example 3. All right, looking at example 3, I'm just going to start you off. The important thing to remember is that please excuse my dear Aunt Sally with multiplication, division first, then addition and subtraction. Okay, so go ahead and give that a try, following those rules. I'm going to go ahead and do number 7. So I have cosecant. What's cosecant? Cosecant is 1 over sine. And again, you can reference the formula. I'm not going to keep changing, flipping the page. And then cot is 1 over tan, which is cosine over sine. And you can reference the formula sheet for that. All right, so I have keep the top, change division to multiplication, and flip the bottom. Okay, so multiply by the reciprocal. The signs cross out, and I have 1 over cosine, which is secant. Okay, so basically you're just trying to simplify the trigonomic expressions using the formulas. Let me do one more. Tan is sine over cosine times cosecant is 1 over sine, all over secant, which is 1 over cosine. All right, I can cross out the signs, the top and the bottom, because it's multiplying the fraction, leaving 1 over cosine divided by 1 over cosine, which is the same thing divided by the same thing, which is equal to what? 1. All right, so let's just make a quick note because I keep doing it. All right, I can cancel across fractions only when it's multiplication, not addition and subtraction. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Please write it down, highlight it, color it in, do something. Matter of fact, this is the listening check. Go ahead and color in what I'm writing right now, the whole thing. I can cancel across fractions only when it's multiplication, not adding or subtracting. Okay, very, 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 very important. And that's it. Let's practice.